All right, you found it, your favorite hockey podcast. This is Wooden Sticks. My name is Kevin Gorg. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. If you're a fan of the Minnesota Wild and a fan of NHL playoff hockey, this is going to be your kind of show. Really excited to have Alexis Pearson back on the podcast. She was on a couple months ago. Does a fantastic job with the Minnesota Wild Radio Network, game in and game out. She is just a rising star on the women's side with the PWHL. She does national games. She does local games with the Minnesota Frost. She just is incredible at what she does. She's got an unbelievable personality. She's super knowledgeable, and she loves the Minnesota Wild. So we have that in common. We've been very good friends for a long time, and really looking forward to hearing how she believes these first two games have gone and where this series can go. As we're recording today, it's Wednesday, the day after game two. I'm getting ready to fly back on the charter with the Minnesota Wild as we get ready for a couple of games in St. Paul. Alexis has a very busy weekend ahead. She'll be doing both the Wild games with Kevin Fallness on that Wild Radio Network. She'll also be doing TV work for the Minnesota Frost on Sunday as they come back from their international break at crunch time, needing some wins to get into the postseason. And hey, it's such a fun time of year to be a hockey fan, and it's not just what we've seen between the Golden Knights and the Wild in these first two games. Incredible game one between the LA Kings and the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, Connor McDavid continues to remind us that he is the most gifted hockey player on the planet. Nathan McKinnon not far behind in that series with Dallas and Colorado, two teams that Wild fans I know because I'm one, don't love, but fantastic hockey nonetheless. The Stanley Cup champions reminded everybody that they're still here as the Florida Panthers went into Tampa and blew the doors off of the Lightning. And then you've got a team like Carolina laying in the weeds that really nobody's talking about, but I think before the dust settles is going to make a huge impact on these playoffs. So many storylines, but we're going to really focus in on the home team today and get Alexis's thoughts on the Minnesota Wild. And we both watch every game, for our gigs, but also as fans of this team. And there's going to be a lot of emotion involved, and that's what you want. And, the Wild right now are finally healthy. We talked about it on our broadcasts throughout the first two games. I think they had a total of 10 games with their entire lineup. I think it had been since early November that they got the band back together. And I think Wild fans were sitting back wondering, is Kirill Kaprizov in this return going to be the guy we saw in October, November, and December when he was the Hart Trophy leading candidate? And we got to see that specifically in game two. He was really good in game one, but in game two, he looked like the guy that was the favorite to win the MVP. And so it's exciting. We got to see the NHL debut in a playoff game of a 19-year-old kid that everybody here in Minnesota has been so excited to see in Ziv Boyum. Mixed reviews for sure. Listen, it wasn't perfect. Game one, I think he looked very nervous, understandably so. I think he was better in game two. It's still a work in progress, but I like the decision by the Wild. Like, you're not here to play not to lose. You are here to take your best shot. And that means if you've got a guy that you moved up in the draft to pick that's got unbelievably crazy offensive skills, you're gonna put him in that lineup, and you're gonna take the good with the bad and know that game by game he's gonna get better and he's gonna get more comfortable. And as hard as that setting was in one of the loudest buildings in the league, when he gets to go back home and play in front of the Wild fans, it's going to be a completely different environment for this kid. Highest scoring defenseman the last 2 years in NCAA hockey. We've already seen Brock Faber make that transition. Now, Brock didn't do Ziv any favors with how he made that transition look so unbelievably seamless. And Brock has been an absolute beast again so far this year for Minnesota, but specifically in these playoff games. But I strongly encourage, if you're out there listening and you're a Wild fan and you're having some anxiety with Ziv Boyum because he hasn't stepped out there and been the same player he was at DU that he could be here, that those days are coming. And I think, as I said at the start of this analysis, he's going to be a work in progress. He's a 19-year-old kid. And I think, having that type of potential, that type of offensive skill on the ice at any point in the series, but specifically if the Wild are in a spot where they need a goal late or have a power play opportunity, you're going to want that kid on the ice. And getting to know him a little bit here on this road trip, he's got a ton of confidence, but in a good way. He's eager to learn, cares, and he's latched himself onto Kirill Kaprizov. When you see him around the hotel or the rink, he's been just kind of soaking it all up from 97. And I think it's really cool to see Kirill take that kind of leadership role on too. I think he really understands what a difference maker Zeev can be for this hockey team. And the kid he's a rock star, man. You see the kid, he's got a presence. And so really pumped to see him back home in front of the Wild fans and see what St. Paul brings on Thursday and Saturday for games 3 and 4. There's nothing like the playoff season. And for Minnesota, the win last night in game 2, I think validates the opinion a lot of us had before this series started, that it's going to be a grinder. It's going to be 6 or 7 games. There's going to be a lot of emotional swings back and forth. And this is a team a couple years ago in Vegas that won the Stanley Cup, and they've got 13 players on this team that were big contributors to that run. So this is going to be far from easy. This is going to be a really tough series, but it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun to watch. And today we're going to talk about that with Alexis Pearson from the Wild Radio Network. I want to thank my dear friends from Minnesota Masonic Charities, John Schweitz, and those guys do incredible work. So thank you, Minnesota Masonic Charities.
When people think of the Freemasons, they often think of secret handshakes and unusual hats, and of course, the pancake breakfast. Minnesota Masonic Charities would prefer that you think about the work that they do right here in our community. Places like the Masonic Cancer Center at the University of Minnesota, or the Masonic Children's Hospital and the Masonic Home in Bloomington. They are just a few examples of the important work that the Freemasons support here in Minnesota. As part of the largest fraternal organization in the world, Masons have consistently answered the call when it comes to charitable needs. I am happy that Minnesota Masonic Charities has chosen Minnesota Bound and this podcast as a place to help spread the word. We look forward to learning so much more about their many programs here in the weeks to come.
And of course, as we start to segue to coming out of our hibernation, so many great things we can do outside. So thank you again to Onyx Maps.
The weather is warming up. That means it's time to put your augers away and it's time to grab the boat. Let Onyx Fish help you find the next best bite. The Fish app offers the most comprehensive fishing tool for increasing your success. Use the Fish app to find new places to fish and sort lakes by species, abundance, trophy, and keeper potential. Onyx Fish also shows you hot spots, lake-by-lake regulations, and private and public land ownership information. Download Onyx Fish on the App Store or go to onyxmaps.com/fish to get more information about the app that is changing the game.
And finally, before we go to break, really want to thank our good friends over at Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. My special friend, Chrissy, who I've been with now for almost 2 decades, is a regular over at Lexus of Wayzata. So I've had the privilege of taking her cars in for oil changes, servicing, checkups type of deal. The folks there are incredible. Lexus is one of those brand names that stands behind their product, and they do incredible work. So happy to have them a part of our series of shows here on the Talk North Podcast Network.
Hey, Rosie here for Alexis of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than my good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they have got you covered with 2 great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to lexusofwayzata.com or lexusofmaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
And when we come back, we get it ramped up. Playoff hockey, Minnesota Wild conversation with the awesome Alexis Pearson. All right, welcome back to Wooden Sticks. As always, we are recording today from the Aquarius Home Services studio. That studio is in Las Vegas. The Wild getting ready here on a Wednesday morning to fly back to St. Paul for a weekend of hockey, game 3 and 4 this weekend against the Vegas Golden Knights. So happy to be joined by Alexis Pearson. She's now a multiple guest on this show multiple times. Alexis, welcome back.
Thanks, KG. And I am glad we don't do video for this, because if we did, I would not be looking my best this morning. You so graciously pushed back the recording time so I could get a few extra nods of sleep after that Wild game. But as you texted me this morning, and as we talked about yesterday, it's a lot easier to get up after a win. So I'm happy to be here, happy to get a chance to talk about what's gone down in the first couple of games.
Well, I always have a hard time sleeping after those games, especially if it's a Wild win. So I found myself tossing and turning last night. I was trying podcasts. I was trying my music collection on Spotify. I could not fall asleep. And I knew, being that we're recording at 7:45 Vegas time here on a Wednesday, that I had to answer the bell. But it makes it so much easier to get out of bed and to get excited to talk about this team, because it's playoff hockey, and we didn't get this last year, and it was such a battle to get here this year. And the last time we had you on the podcast, it was still up in the air. And I think we're seeing, Alexis, as I left the rink last night, I think the not so subtle reminder for Wild fans and for hockey fans all over the world is the value of players like Ek and Kaprizov and what this team went through, missing them basically half a season each.
Yeah, I mean, I've been kind of telling people when they've asked me my thoughts about the playoffs and about the matchup and all that fun stuff. And I've just been saying, we had no business being in the playoffs this year. I mean, nobody picked us at the start of the year when we had a healthy squad. And then half our squad, including most of our important players on both ends of the ice, are injured for pretty much half the season. And then you get them back right at the end of the season. And as everybody who watches sports knows, it's not just, a magic balm and you come back in and all of a sudden you're feeling 100% and you're playing like you did. Sometimes it takes players a couple games to get adjusted, or even a couple periods to get back adjusted into their regular style of hockey, the regular pace of the game. So getting the players back right at the end of the year, I wasn't convinced that, okay, now that they're healthy again, it might not be till game 2 of the playoffs or game 3 of the playoffs that we really see them playing like themselves again and contributing to the team like we know that they can. The fact that we got them back at the end of the season and the Wild clinch a playoff spot in the most dramatic Minnesota fashion that a team could possibly clinch a playoff spot. And it was fun, and it was worth every second of the stress because we got to watch Fleury play in overtime. And then we get to the postseason, and this team looks good, KG. I mean, you and I talked after the first game. It's not too often I feel good about a loss in the playoffs. I felt pretty good about the way the Wild played in that first game. And I just kept telling myself, if we get that effort for the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games, this is going to be a good series. And sure, you don't have wiggle room in the playoffs, right? If a couple losses rack up, it's hard to come back and win a series. So you can't have too many excuses and say, yeah, well, we played well, but we lost. You can maybe get that excuse once a series, right? And that was the Wild's excuse in game 1. I thought they played really well. They didn't come out on the winning side of it. It was essentially a 1-goal game. And you could say special teams maybe was the difference in that one. And then they come back in game 2 against a Vegas team on the road who's probably feeling great after that first win, probably feeling like, hey, we've got this Wild team where we want them. And the Wild come out and they put 3 goals up in the first period. So I've been very pleased with their effort. I've been very pleased with what they've done here. And KG, I'm sure we'll get into this, but there's some players I didn't expect to have really good starts to the series who are playing really well to start the series.
You make some great points. And I go back to before the season because I do follow the pundits throughout Canada and throughout the States. And the consensus was this was somewhere in the 10th, 11th, 12th spot in the West. They were not for the most part, projected to be a playoff team. And I was disappointed to see that. I was hopeful coming into the season, and that took me back a little bit. But then, you watch the first couple months, and Kirill Kaprizov had taken his game to another level, which I don't think anybody saw coming. And Gustafsson had taken a huge step. And along the way, you saw the potential this team had. And, we talked about it in our playoff preview before game 1 on FanDuel Sports Network that through the Christmas season, this team had the best points percentage in the National Hockey League. So the struggle was legit. This coaching staff has done an unbelievable job of figuring out how to keep this train on the tracks because, to your point, they probably shouldn't have been a playoff team. They got in barely, but they did. They got in and they earned it. They really earned it this year. And, you had a lot of players that played a lot more minutes and saw their roles magnified incredibly to get it. There was a price to be paid. And that, looking at this, if we're being honest, big picture, if the Wild are going to try to make a run here, players like Faber and Brodin, and obviously, you look
They're going to sleep the whole summer after this playoff run if we keep getting from them what we've asked of them as of late.
And it's been fun, though, to see some of the, as you mentioned, the X Factor guys step up in this series. And I'll start with Ryan Hartman. I got to tell you, this guy was having a really tough year. And I think that turning point, that pivot point was the 8-game suspension, that debacle in Ottawa. And I got to tell you, this is the type of guy in a playoff series that could really swing things Minnesota's way.
Absolutely. And he was one of the couple players on my list as well that I have been so pleased by in these first couple games of this series, because KG, as you know, in order to win a playoff series, in order to win a Stanley Cup, you need your best players to be your best players, plus a few others need to step up, right? And that doesn't always mean stepping up and scoring goals. That doesn't always mean stepping up and assisting on goals. Every player has a certain role that's expected of them, and especially once you get to the playoffs, everybody has something we need from them in order to come out on the right side of a game and the right side of a series. And, Hartman's probably not going to go out there and get you 15 goals in this playoff series, right? But what he can do is he can be the kind of player that can annoy you. He can be the kind of player that can really bust his butt and work hard to make a play happen. He is that kind of guy that you can rely on in those situations. And especially after game 1, KG, I mean, he probably drew what should have been 4 penalties in game 1, and he only got 1, called in his favor. He's getting pushed around. He's getting knocked down. And a player like him, sometimes you worry, is he going to lose his temper here? Is he going to turn around and knock somebody in the head and sit in the box for 2 minutes? What are we going to get out of him in this situation? And the fact that he's getting pushed around, knocked down, getting into these physical plays, and just sticking to his game. He's not stooping to that level. He's not trying to cheat the game at all. He's just staying the course. And having him stay the course in those situations is what we need out of him. And he did that in game 1. He continued to do that in game 2. And in that first game, when he got cross-checked in the neck and didn't draw a penalty, KG, I know we've known each other for a long time. I'm a nice gal, but I got a bit of a temper on me sometimes. That would have flipped my lid. I might have been a little mad after that. I might have had something to say. And the fact that he just kind of walked away from that situation, played his game, stuck to it, I was so pleased by that, because you don't always see that from a player like him. And then he comes out and has a great game in game 2. So I just, if this is what we're going to get from him in this series, that's exactly what we need from him. And after, like you said, the season that he's had and the reputation that he's kind of built for himself, unfortunately, it's not always easy for players to settle into a role in the postseason like that. And so far, he's done a very good job.
Yeah, I found it super ironic. The Wild digital team does an awesome job of taking us inside the locker room after wins. They've got great videos. And so last night, all year long, it was the choose your hard. And, I think that also makes it fitting that the Wild used the last 21 seconds of the season to get in. As you mentioned, it was hard for all of us to watch. It was stressful. But Ryan Hartman was the guy that built the chains with the hard sign on the front that they passed around throughout the regular season. They changed it up in the playoffs. They know they need 16 game pucks to win the cup, and they're going to collect them one at a time. So the captain, Jared Spurgeon, grabs the game puck from last night. The whole team's sitting there, and he gives his spew, and he singles out Kaprizov for a big game and Gustafsson for being incredibly solid. And then he says, but the puck tonight goes to Ryan Hartman. And I found that to be very poetic, because part of choosing your heart is when you get cheap shotted, when teams are trying to get under your skin, you have a choice to make. It's a lot harder to do what he's done and to suck it up, to take the hits, to not complain to the officials, to not go back and cheap shot and take a penalty, and just play your game and continue to get under the skin of the opposition. In a perfect world, that's great. But if anyone's played sports, it's not that easy. It's damn hard to do that. And the conversation around this team right now, from the coaches through the players, is Ryan Hartman right now is a different player, and he's a difference maker. And he's a guy that the players really migrate to. What fans don't see is what we do on the road and around the rink. And you're around these guys, like, they really look up to Ryan Hartman. They love Ryan Hartman. So some of the mistakes he's made have really hurt this hockey team. But if this is the guy he's going to be come playoff time, it is huge for Minnesota. And the other guy I want to single out here at the front end with you is Marcus Foligno, because Alexis, the last time we saw him in a playoff series, and I love the emotion that Marcus brings every single day, but especially in the postseason. He'll admit it. He's talked about it. He lost his cool in that series against Dallas 2 years ago. He has been a completely he's been a completely different player in this series.
Well, KG, we are like two peas in a pod. If anybody doubted our friendship over the years, this solidifies it, because those were the two players at the top of my list as far as your quote unquote unexpected, bright stars in the start of this series, or unexpected, at least in the consistency and the way in which they've brought their game. And Marcus Foligno, anybody who knows me knows I'm probably one of the biggest Marcus Foligno fans out there. I love that guy. I love the way he plays the game. He's got that old school flair to him that I wish more hockey players had in today's modern day of hockey. But he doesn't cheat the game. He plays hard, but he plays fair. He stands up for his teammates. He's the kind of guy that'll get under your skin, but he's not going to do so illegally most of the time. He's going to do it the right way. He's going to play the game smart. And he has put his money where his mouth is in the first couple games of the series. I mean, he's had interviews where he's talked about how we need to play physical and this is what we need to do to win a playoff series and win a Stanley Cup. And what has he had? 20 plus hits in the first couple games. I mean, he is throwing his body around and he is not afraid to do it. He's not letting up either. And, for that first game, the Wild were trailing for that entire game. They never had a lead in that game. So that's a tough way to play a game when you're trailing the entire time. Then they come out on the flip side of it in game 2, and then they've got the lead, which allows you to play a little bit more comfortably, but he sticks to his game. He's still throwing his body around. He's still making it tough for players out there. He's making the ice smaller for his opponent. And that's what you need in playoff hockey. Everybody knows playoff hockey, the ice is smaller. There's not a lot of room out there, and it's going to get physical. And even on top of that, you're not going to see as many penalties called. So players might get away with a little bit more in a postseason game than they would in a regular season game, especially in this Wild series. We've seen the refs have not been calling hardly anything. They're letting them play. So if you're going to play that style of physical game, it's going to bode well for you, not only in that game itself, but down the line. And then you kind of create a reputation of a team as we're tough to play against. You talk about the teams in the league that you don't want to play against because they're going to run you into the ground. It's what the Winnipeg Jets did to the Wild back in 2018 or whatever year that series was. We just weren't the tougher team. Tougher teams can win playoff games and at times playoff series if you can wear your opponent down. So what Marcus Foligno is doing is huge for this Minnesota Wild team, and I hope we continue to get that from him. And KG, we've seen him playing in a Minnesota Wild uniform for years now. We know he can score too if we need him to, as we saw the other night. We know he can be that kind of guy, not as frequently as he throws his body around, but we can get that little flair from him as well if he's really on his game, and we saw that yesterday in game 2.
And I think Foligno and some of the tougher guys on this team are going to be tested on Thursday night. We're recording this on Wednesday. It's a travel day today for the Minnesota Wild back to St. Paul. And I know as folks come to this podcast, whether it is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the series is unfolding. I think it's going to be a 6 or 7 game classic series. Though, if you have any visions of Vegas going away quietly into the night, I just don't think that's going to happen. Their coach called them out big time last night in his presser after the game. So let's one game. Let's settle down. But I do think the test is coming, because when I think of Marcus Foligno and Kirill Kaprizov and the love that Moose has for Kirill, he's like his big brother. And when Nicholas Hague sucker punched Kaprizov, it upset everybody. Yep. And especially guys like Marcus Foligno and certainly Ryan Hartman, as we talked about. So to me, on Thursday night, and this is going to be a thing, in my opinion, as the series progresses, but specifically in St. Paul, when the fans are going to have some signs and there's going to be an atmosphere and it's going to be a later start and everybody's going to be all wound up. Can the Wild continue to play physical, to get in the face of Vegas and maybe get that revenge, but maybe do it by being physical and not taking penalties? Because to me, the most impressive part of game number 2 from a Wild perspective was they were able to go out there and create turnovers with physical play. They were able to go out there and frustrate Vegas with their body work, but they didn't take one penalty. And Vegas had the number 2 power play in the National Hockey League during the regular season, and you just cannot give them 3, 4, 5 power plays in any game if you think you're going to win.
Well, and let's not forget, Vegas is a big team. Like, size-wise, they've got a lot of size on their team. So if the Wild are going to play physical, they have to commit to it, because if you get into a physical battle with a team like that and then you start to ease the foot off the pedal, they're going to come at you. And we saw how Vegas came out in that first game, KG. I mean, they were throwing their bodies around. Guys are getting thrown down left and right, and you're thinking, all right, this is playoff hockey. Here we go. And the Wild answered the bell, and they have to continue to do so, because a team like Vegas, if they smell blood in the water, they're going to take advantage of that. So, as the lower seeded team in a playoff series, those toughest games, I think, of the series are those first two on the road, because fans are hungry for playoff hockey, especially in that first round. Fans are hungry for playoff hockey. They're excited to see their team hopefully come away with some wins on home ice. The Wild survived. They came out 1-1. They say it's not a series till you lose at home. Vegas has lost at home, and now the Wild get to go to their home crowd and play a couple games. This is where the series could swing right here. I agree. It's going to be a long series. If this goes less than 6, I would be absolutely shocked. I think we're going at least 6 in this game, or in this series. I don't think the Wild or Vegas is going to win the next 2 here, but you need to play good in front of your home crowd. You need to continue that physical play, because fans eat that up. And if you can get the crowd on your side here and continue to do what you've done, force turnovers, play physical, limit, situations where officials could call a penalty on you. Don't even give them that opportunity to, because special teams has been an issue for the Wild for a long time. We've all seen it. It's been a talking point for Wild fans and Wild media for the last couple of years, to be honest. And especially when you're going up against a team who's got a really good power play. We saw it get to work in game 1. You need to be careful in those situations. So it's a line to toe here. You got to be careful, but you can't back off, because the tone has been set. It's going to be a physical series. Stay the course here and see if you can come out with some success here at home in front of your amazing fans.
I think most of our listeners are aware of the great work you do, and I think they've watched you covering the PWHL both locally and nationally. And I think the Wild Radio Network, it clearly is something that if folks are hockey fans, they're exposed to it. So I just think it'd be fun to go through, like, you have the home game coming up Thursday, the home game Saturday afternoon. As you guys put this broadcast together, where are you? And do you get to watch the game? Are you just listening to the game? Take us through kind of the thumbnail sketch of what your night looks like when you get to work with Kevin Fallness and that crew.
Yeah, so actually something a lot of people don't know about the Minnesota Wild radio broadcasts is that we do all of our broadcasts from the Xcel Energy Center. So even when the Wild are on the road, even when the broadcasts are maybe on national TV, right, if they're on ESPN or TNT, we do every single game, and every single game is done from the Xcel Energy Center. Now, Tom and Joe are out, doing the game wherever the game is. But the production side of it, Fallness and me, or one of the other guys that does my job, we're right there at the Xcel Energy Center in the studio in the basement of the X, covering that game back from St. Paul. So generally what a night looks like is home or away. We get to the game, an hour or so before puck drop, and then we kind of get set up for the pregame show, taking a look over what we're going over in the pregame show, if we've got any interviews for anything lined up. And then as we get set for the pregame show, my role with the team is essentially running the audio for the entire broadcast. So playing the highlights during the broadcast, bringing the audio up and down as we come in and out of break, cutting highlights when things happen so that they're ready to go and we want to use them in intermissions or post games. And then once we get to post game, we go through the post game show, which I think is the most fun part because it's the only thing you can't plan. I like to kind of fly by the seat of my pants and you just see where the game takes you. And Fallness kind of leads the way and says, here's what I need, here's what I want queued up. And then we kind of get through it and we get wrapped up at the end of the night and then we all go home. So it's a really fun job. There's two other guys who do the same job as me. So there's three of us who have the same role. We just get rotated among all 82 games in the regular season plus the postseason. And it's really fun. I enjoy getting a chance to cover even the games on the road because it just allows us to be a part of kind of the entire season, much like you guys traveling with the team and covering every single game. So it's a fun job. I've been doing it for 7 years now, I think.
Wow.
And it's really fun working with Fallness. He's a great boss. I know it irritates some of you, but he's nice to me. So I'll take that. And it's fun. I really, really love it. And I enjoy getting to be a part of the Wild games.
Well, that's part of the bit. We get after Fallness. He gets after us, the whole mute the TV thing. It's classic. He's actually, he's one of my closest friends. We've both been here for almost 20 years. And a lot of miles together. We've done a lot of different functions, charity events, stuff like that. And I think, you know, you and I are cut from the same cloth. Like if we didn't have jobs that required us to be dialed into the Wild game, we'd be dialed into the Wild game. Like I was a season ticket holder back when I was coaching and wasn't broadcasting. Year one. I mean, you know, with my high school cronies, you know, the Paul Lewises, the Andy Luckcrafts, the Mike Luckcrafts, these guys, my still good friends, like we shared season tickets. And so to me, it's never worked. Like, you know, I'm standing in that building last night at T-Mobile, and you know, they've got the Golden Knight themed scarves or whatever they're throwing. And the place is electric, and the teams come on the ice, and it's an incredible place to watch a hockey game. And I always look around come playoff time and say, this is the best of the best for this. You know, the job is great always, and I never take it for granted. But the reason I get so anxious in seasons like this, when it looked like they were a playoff team, then it looked like they weren't a playoff team, and then we almost blew it at the end. Like, there is nothing like being in the arena for NHL playoff hockey. And, you know, we're going to get to experience that in St. Paul this weekend. But I'm telling you, these two games in Vegas, it's just incredible. And it just makes the hair on your neck just stand up. It is so damn exciting. And then when you have a team like this, and, you know, you talked about this at the front end of our conversation, come playoff time, you have to have certain key factors to have success in the playoffs. You have to have goaltending. The Wild have it with Gustafsson. He now is a big-time goalie in this league. And you have to have star power. And Kirill Kaprizov, to me, is the one guy, and I've done this for 2 decades, the one guy that every time he's on the ice, he's the only person I want to watch.
Yeah, he is. My dad and I, and you've met my dad many a times, KG, and you know he's a big sports fan as well. He's the reason I'm as big of a sports fan as I am. And anytime Kirill has a good game, which is often, we just text each other back and forth. I love him. No, I love him. No, I love him. No, I love him more. I mean, it's just, that's the kind of love affair we have with this guy. He is so fun to watch. And I think at times Minnesota fans are starved for talent, starved for that kind of success, because don't get me wrong, we've had our fair share of talented athletes, you know, come through the ranks here in Minnesota at all, you know, in all sports, really. You think of the Randy Mosses, you think of, you know, all these different athletes that have come through. I mean, right now, really, every Minnesota team has a superstar. You've got the Twins have Royce Lewis. You've got the Timberwolves have Anthony Edwards, which God bless him. I love that guy. You've got JJ with the Vikings. You've got Kirill with the Wild. This is a really fun time in Minnesota sports where we've got a really talented young player in each of the 4 major men's sports here that is just such a joy to watch and is being talked about on the national stage as well, which is what I don't think we see as frequently in Minnesota. So when we get a player like this, who's so successful, even if the team isn't that great, we have someone exciting to watch. And that's what Kirill has done for this Wild team is, I mean, I would say the last, and KG, you can correct me if I'm wrong or if you disagree with this. I would say the last time the Wild fan base has been this excited about a player, and even now in retrospect, feels like it doesn't even compare, was probably Marian Gaborik. And that was, how long ago was that? 20 years ago, 15 years ago. I mean, it's been a long time since we've had a player like that who every time he steps on the ice, you know, hey, we've got a chance to do something here. That's what it feels like. Every time Kirill steps on the ice, he's going to score a goal. He might score 2 goals in this shift. I mean, that's the kind of excitement he brings. And KG, you look at that saucer pass last night. I mean, my God, that belongs in a museum. That was a beauty to behold. And I think some people who've maybe never played the sport, which that is me. I'll raise my hand. I'll be the first to say that. I've never played hockey, you know, on an organized team, or people who aren't diehard fans of the sport maybe don't realize how hard it is to execute on a saucer pass on both ends. It's hard to catch a saucer pass. It's hard to commit a saucer pass. And the beauty of that, he made it look like he does that every single day. And he's just such a talent, and he's got such a hockey IQ, unlike almost any player I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. I mean, he just anticipates so well. He always seems to find the open guy. He plays hard. He's got a little spice to him as well. I mean, we've seen him kind of, you know, get riled up at times when, you know, things are going against the Wild or his teammates are getting attacked. Even if he's getting attacked, he'll stand up for himself. And he just has so much to offer. And I hope he plays here for 100 years. I will sit down and watch every single hockey game that Kirill Kaprizov participates in because he's that much fun to watch.
Yeah, I've missed him. Like the bulk of this season, I just found myself missing him so much. And it's funny to hear you talk about your dad. My dad's a lot older than your dad. My dad is 85 years old. He's in a place called Apple Valley Village. He's got dementia. He's a huge Wild fan, and he loves Kirill Kaprizov. And so I go to visit my dad 2-3 times a week when I'm not traveling. And every single time this winter after Christmas time, when I'd go in there, is Kirill coming back? Is Kirill coming back? And sometimes when you're sitting with your dad, that question comes up, 2 or 3 times in an hour. And now that he's back, and I know my dad's watching all these games, he's having so much fun. And, my passion for hockey goes back to, my dad Kenny taking me to North Star games when I was 6 or 7 years old. And I was lucky enough in one particular game to sit real close to the goalie. And that goalie was Gilles Malash, who at the time was playing for the California Golden Seals, eventually would come and be a fixture later in his career for the North Stars. So it's funny how these games bring you back together with a lot of times your mom or dad or somebody that brought you to the game. And these playoff runs are the things you remember. And I still remember before I worked on the TV side, 2003, you mentioned Marian Gaborik, that incredible run they had to the Western Conference Final. Really the only run this organization has ever had. Now, I think another run or runs are coming. I've said that all year long on the show. We talked about it months ago together. This player, this 97 that we get to watch, we are privileged to have in a Minnesota Wild uniform, is the type of player that Stanley Cups find. Like, Ryan Carter made this point before the season started. When you think about players and teams that have success this time of year, this is the type of player that the Cup seems to find, and I believe it. Like when Crosby came into the league, it wasn't a question of if, it was a question of when.
And
Alex
how many?
Ovechkin, same thing, right? Well, right. But I mean, this is that guy. Like we have that guy here now. And so it's exciting that, as we watch this guy throughout the year come back from injury once, he wasn't the same. We all saw it. He was not Kirill. Had that surgery. He's come back. And truthfully, he was really good in game 1, but game 2, as we record this on Wednesday, last night, he looked like the guy we saw the first half of the season. I remind fans, Alexis, that he was the betting favorite to be the MVP at Christmas time in the National Hockey League. That's the type of guy that can lead a team, not only through this series, but beyond. And again, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but he is the guy.
Yeah, I mean, his injury robbed us of what would have been a Hart Trophy season. I mean, he was on pace to have an incredible, incredible season. And it was so exciting watching him rack up those points in the early stages of the season and just seeing the way he was playing the game. He was oozing confidence at the start of the season here. And it was so disappointing. I mean, these are the kind of injuries you always feel for players who go down with injuries, especially if they're long-term, but especially when a player's having a season like that. And at the very least, he was going to be in contention, probably going to win it. But at the very least was going to be in contention for it. And to not know what could have been had that injury not happened or had the injury not been as severe and he would have been able to get back into the swing of things before the season was essentially over. And it just, I feel, like I said, like we were robbed of getting to witness what that season would have looked like for him. But then to have him come back, and like you said, in game 1, he only had the one shot on net, but he assisted on the goals. And, he looked good, didn't look great. Wasn't the Kirill we know he can be, which even an average Kirill is better than most of the players in the league. But we knew he had more to offer. Then he comes out in game 2, and his stat line for game 2 is just like, he's got this, he's got that. I think he was a +2 at the end of the night. He's scoring that empty net goal, which the Wild really needed. I thought personally, KG, and you're a goaltender, so maybe you've got a different view on this. I thought they pulled Adin Hill just a smidge early last night. I thought they could have maybe waited another 30 seconds or so. I thought Vegas was playing well. They had their chances. I personally would have maybe waited a bit, but Kirill makes him pay. He gets the empty net goal from basically the front row of the seats behind his own net and takes care of business. And the Wild, as good as they played, at times the game felt a little shaky yesterday when Vegas, scored that second goal and there's still a lot of time left. And you're thinking, oh boy, everybody buckle up here. This could get tight. We saw what LA and what happened in the LA and Oilers game the other night. So no lead is safe in the playoffs. Anything can happen. And he goes out, he takes care of business, gets the empty net goal, does so many other good things in the game yesterday. And it felt like he was back to himself in that game too, taking a step forward from what he did in game 1. And yeah, I mean, this is teams rally around a player like this, that you see how much the team loves Kirill. I mean, they love him and he loves them. And every time he's out on the ice, there's the possibility that something good could happen. And it's just really fun to watch a player like that. And you just hope that what he did at the start of the season can be replicated here in the playoffs, and that when the Wild are hopefully lifting up the Stanley Cup in June, we're talking about how Kirill Kaprizov got him there.
Yeah, and the other guy I want to throw some flowers at before we get to, I want to do some weekend predictions with the games as fans are going to listen to this, getting ready for games 3 and 4 in St. Paul. And I want to get to some Minnesota Frost conversation on the back end here and tee up their return on Sunday. But the Wild aren't here in this playoff series. They're at home without Matt Boldy. And he played all 82 games. He, at some points of the season, basically carried this team. And I get it. Kirill Kaprizov is Batman and he's Robin, and that's cool. But I'm telling you, this young man is 24 years old. He's mature beyond those years. I can't even explain to fans what a great kid this guy is behind the scenes, how much he cares about the team over himself, and how day in and day out he is dedicated to getting better. Like, this is a superstar player.
Oh, he
and
loves
maybe
the game.
overshadowed, right? Maybe overshadowed because of Kirill, but the Wild aren't here right now without number 12.
No, and they were talking about that in the post game yesterday. Marcus Foligno and Matt Boldy did a dual podium appearance, and some of the reporters were asking Matt Boldy about his connection with Kirill, what he's done for him, and they kind of compared Matt Boldy and Kirill's connection to what Zucchi and Kirill have a little bit as of late. It just seems they've found each other on the ice. They've worked really well together. You know, Hines has kind of juggled the lines and separated Zucchi and Kirill for parts of the season here. Again, partly because Kirill was injured for half the season. But what Kirill and Matt Boldy have been able to do in this playoff series. I mean, Matt Boldy scored the first 3 goals of the playoff series. I felt like maybe no one else was going to score a goal. I'm like, well, hey, that's fine. As long as he can score 2-3 a night, I think we'll be all right. I mean, that's how good he was looking at the start of this playoff series. And I'm just excited to see what he's done. I think at times people have been a little hard on him, to be honest, about we need more from Matt Boldy because, you know, let's be honest, he can be a bit streaky, KG, where, you know, he has a couple games where he's not doing as much. Then all of a sudden he comes out and he has a stretch of, 5, 6, 7 games where he's got 10 points. So he is a very capable player. We've seen this season, I think, especially what he can do for us. And at the end of the day, every team would love to have a Kirill, right? Everybody wants that kind of player. And the best teams in the league, the teams that have gone on to win Stanley Cups, have that kind of player. But one superstar usually can't get the job done. It takes a supporting cast to go on and win. It's a long postseason. You get beat up, you get tired. Most of the series aren't going to end in 4 or 5 games. So you're playing 6, 7 games a series, and you need other players who can come out and score goals. Kirill can't be on the ice, as much as we'd love him to, for 60 minutes every game. It's just not possible. I'm sure he would do it if he could, but it's not possible. So who else can go out there and pick up where he leaves off? You've got a guy like Matt Boldy who has that same level of compete. You talked about how much he loves the game. I mean, he's the kind of player who it's hockey 24/7 for him. He's constantly wanting to get better, wanting to improve. What can he do to succeed? What can he do to contribute more? And this season, we've really seen from him what he's capable of. And like you said, if the Wild make a long run here, it's not going to be just Kirill we're talking about. It's not going to be just Gus we're talking about. It's going to be another guy like Matt Boldy that's at the top of people's list when we talk about how did this team get to where they are. He's been really, really good, and it's been fun to see him be rewarded for what he's done. And he's a guy who generally gets a lot of opportunities. I mean, if you look at his stats line, there's a lot of nights where he has like 6, 7 shots on net. And now when he's able to put the puck in the back of the net, that just adds that dual threat that not only is he getting the opportunities, he's cashing in on them. And so far in the first 2 games of the series, he's been a big reason, if not one of the biggest reasons, that the Wild have been able to even the series up at 1.
Well, I know from interactions with our listeners here on Wooden Sticks how much they enjoy listening to you, your passion, your love of the game, how much you care about the Wild. Folks, give this girl a follow at Alexis Mirjana, AlexisMirjana. And I was just taking a peek 57 minutes ago. My fiance, what time did you get home and come to bed last night? Me, I was in bed by like 2:15. him, that's not that late. And then you send the picture of Dean Evison staring down an official. This is the kind of content I need as I get ready to travel back home. So help me out with the Mirjana. Is that a family? Okay, help me out.
Yes. So it's Mirjana. And it is my grandma's name, who is from Macedonia, which is in part of Yugoslavia. She came to America when she was 18, started her family here, and I got passed down her first name, became my middle name. I hated it when I was a kid because I'm like, nobody knows what this name is. I've never heard of this name before. And I was kind of embarrassed to tell people that was my middle name because people would be like, what kind of name is that? And then as I got older and smarter and wiser, KG, as we tend to do, I grew an appreciation for the name, for what she did, sacrificing to come here to America to start her life. And I realized it's a special name because nobody else has it. It's something I share with her, and it's I love my middle name now. I hope to someday pass it down to one of my daughters if I'm so lucky to have one. And so it's but it is a funny topic of conversation because it is an unusual name, and I use it in all my social media handles, and people are always like, what is that, your middle name? Is that some kind of joke? Like, what is that? So yes, it is my middle name, and I love it, and I'm very proud of it.
That's awesome, and you're a great follow. The content is not only insightful, it's got a lot of humor to it. I strongly encourage our listeners to take a peek at that, and you will not be disappointed. And there was a little tease with one of your tweets also here this morning about the expansion, the possibilities in the PWHL. So let's segue here in the final few minutes to talk about the Minnesota Frost, because, with the long break here late in the season, as they played some international hockey over in Czechia, they're in a similar position to the Minnesota Wild, being that the last couple games of the regular season are going to make or break their chances to be in the postseason. And again, Sunday, they're back in action. This should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is the time of year you look forward to. I mean, sometimes you wish it was a little more tightened up in the playoff race than it is, but the Minnesota Frost don't have that luxury right now. It's going to be a battle right till the end. And honestly, it's been a battle all season with only 6 teams in the league and 4 playoff spots on the line. These teams are constantly flip-flopping and twisting all over each other, climbing into the playoff race, climbing back out of it. And it's pretty uncommon to see the standings stick in any which way for too long. I mean, it's every single night there's a game, something's changing. And with the 3-point system in the PWHL, for those who are unfamiliar with it, I actually think it's pretty cool. I really like how it works. It allows for more points. It allows for a little bit more pressure to kind of close games out in regulation, but 3 points for a regulation win, 2 points for an overtime or regulation win. 2 points for an overtime or shootout win, 1 point for an overtime or shootout loss, no points for a regulation loss. So there's that extra onus on winning in regulation. There's more points to be had. So that's a big reason why the standings are constantly flipping around. And Minnesota, heading into the international break, they got a big win to climb into the 4th playoff spot. And then later that week, before the international break, Ottawa played and won, and then jumped back over Minnesota for the 4th playoff spot. So currently, Minnesota's sitting in 5th in the standings with just New York behind them. New York will not be making the playoffs. So really, it's the top 5 teams here who are battling it out for 4 spots. And for those who watched last year and remember, this is basically the exact same position Minnesota was in last season. It came down to the final few games. They lost a lot of games heading into the final stretch of the regular season. They lost 5 games at the end of the regular season, plus the first 2 games of the playoffs. So they had lost 7 straight before rattling off 3 straight wins to beat Toronto and then ultimately going on to beat Boston in the final for the Walter Cup Championship. So this is a team who's been here before, and everybody has 3 games remaining coming back from this international break. For Minnesota, 2 of the 3 teams they play are 2 teams they're battling for a playoff spot with in Boston and Ottawa. So you've got a chance to just take care of your own business here, kind of like the Wild, right? You just go out and get some points, win against the teams you need to, and that spot's all wrapped up and all taken care of. So hopefully that win before the international break will propel them to come out here at the end of the regular season and pick up a few more wins. And, a lot of the players for Minnesota that went out and played in the Women's Worlds came away with some really good success in that Women's Worlds tournament. So even though they weren't in action as a team, collectively, the Minnesota Frost or any of the other teams for that matter, you've got players like Taylor Heisey coming back who had really good success and was a big part of that winning gold for USA. You've got players like Grace Zumwinkle. You've got players like just Shishova, so many other players who play not just with USA, but with the other countries who are coming back, who had some success, hopefully can use that in their favor. And we'll see if Minnesota can take care of their own business for a crack at the playoffs once again, see if they can win another Walter Cup.
Yeah, watch for Alexis Sunday afternoon. A great weekend of hockey ahead. And we'll close with this. So we've got games 3 and 4 coming up, and our listeners are going to be diving into this show, getting all your great opinions, and setting up these 2 home games. So we know that Kaprizov and Boldy and some of these star players on the Minnesota Wild are going to be out there doing their thing. Let's each try to find a player a little bit off the radar that might score a big goal, make a big play that maybe folks don't see coming. And so I'm kind of putting you on the spot. So I'm going to buy you a little time here. We've talked a lot about the star players in this team. And maybe it's a defenseman diving into the offense. Maybe it's a 3rd or 4th line guy just scoring 1 goal over the weekend that can really tip the scales in the favor of the Wild. I really believe that this series goes the distance. I've felt that from the time the series started, and I'm okay with that, knowing that the Wild are so very good away from home. Their home record has been a little lukewarm this year, but I'll say this: they closed with a flourish. They won some big games late in the year, and that emotion is going to be real, and the crowds in St. Paul are different come playoff time. So let's each throw a player out there. I'm going to let you go first, and I'll follow. Maybe you'll pick the same guy I'm thinking about, but I've got a guy in mind right now.
Well, KG, we're on pace to just have the same brain in this podcast episode, so we very well might have the same player. But I'm going to go with the guy who actually, at the start of the first game, so something when my fiance and I get to watch Wild games together, which isn't super often with my schedule in the wintertime, but we were watching game 1 together, and he always likes to tell me, let's each pick a player to score the first goal. Just a friendly, nothing on the line, little bet to see which one of us can get it right. And I picked Marcus Johansson because he's had such a great season, especially as of late. Is that your guy? No way.
Keep going. This is your deal now. Oh,
well, sorry to steal your thunder, KG, but he's been so good. And I know there's been people who've kind of joked that he always plays well in a contract year. Hey, I'll take it. I'll take a good season out of Marcus Johansson. I don't care what the reason is. Go get your money, go make your bag, and let's do some good things here for the Minnesota Wild. But he's just been really smart, and he is one of those players that even when he's playing well, he kind of goes under the radar. And so I think he could be an X factor for the Minnesota Wild, somebody you maybe don't expect to come out and get a big goal. And he's a very skilled player who just doesn't get talked about a ton. Like I said, even when he is playing well. And I thought he's had a great season, especially down the stretch here. So I'm going to go with Marcus Johansson to be a big factor in the next couple games.
Okay, you took my guy, and that's good. That's your guy now. I'm going to have to go to I had 2 guys, but he was at the top of my list.
If your second guy is also my second guy, then we're really on the same page. So I'm curious, who's your second guy, KG?
Well, he's a sweetheart of a human being. He played in all 82 games, and I think he gets overlooked a ton. But what this guy brings to the table every single day is he's one of those glue guys, and that's Freddie Gaudreau. I just love the way this guy quietly goes about his business. Big face-offs, penalty kills, shutdown roll. And I think the one area on my note card is I got ready to do this show with you today that I didn't get into, and we're basically out of time. But the top line for Vegas, Barbashev, Eichel, and Stone had 212 points during the regular season. Through 2 games, they have 0 points. Now, it hasn't been Gaudreau the whole time. It's been a combo platter, but that's the matchup I think the Wild want, and that speaks to the level of respect that this guy has with the Wild coaching staff. He is a gamer. He cares. He honestly, when I say sweetheart, I mean you will not find a nicer human being than Freddie Gaudreau. And so I look at this, and both games I think are going to be tight. 1-goal games. There's potential for overtime, I think, for sure, in both of these games in St. Paul. He's the type of guy, the under-the-radar guy that nobody sees coming, that could score one of those goals that changes the complexion of a series. So I've got Freddie Gaudreau. You've got Marcus Johansson. We've got an unbelievable weekend of hockey. Wild Thursday and Saturday, Minnesota Frost with Alexis on vocals on the TV broadcast for Sunday. And how much fun is this going to be? I mean, the weather I heard back home is fantastic as I get ready to fly home from Vegas.
Yep.
That's what it makes you feel like. It's playoff season. Like when you can walk around and see you get to the X and you've got the fans coming in with their shorts on and the jerseys. It's a different vibe come playoff time.
If you're still having the pleasure of watching hockey in Minnesota when it's 70 degrees out, life is good. No complaints here. I will take that any season you can give it to me. It's been a beauty of a week here as far as spring weather goes in Minnesota. And yeah, it's just, especially, downtown St. Paul. I lived right on West 7th for over 2 years. I loved West 7th. And if it wasn't for, meeting my fiance and wanting to start my life with him, I would have stayed there the rest of my life. I loved West 7th. But it's the best time of year because the bars open up that outside garage, right? So fans are spilled out onto the sidewalk. Like you said, they're wearing their shorts, they're wearing their t-shirts, they're having a few drinks, getting some food before the game. And West 7th is just hopping and busy. And it's a sight to behold. It is a beautiful thing. And it's one of the best times of year. And I always remind myself, KG, this time of year that whether the Wild are winning playoff games, losing playoff games, looking good, not looking good, there's a lot of fan bases that would love to have the chance just to watch their team play in a playoff series. There's a lot of fan bases that, as much as we say we don't have it good, there's a lot of fan bases that have it worse than us. Buffalo Sabres fans, I'm looking at you. I'm so sorry that you haven't had this pleasure. So however this series ends, however, if the Wild move on to the next series, however that one ends, to be able to watch hockey in April and enjoying this beautiful weather and enjoying this beautiful sport, there's nothing like it.
All right, well stated, and so much fun to hear your passion and to get your insights, and looking forward to seeing you in St. Paul, a part of the Wild Radio Network, and of course Minnesota Frost on Sunday. Don't forget to tune in, and really it's such a fun time to be a fan of the game. And as you said, it's April going on May here. We're late in the calendar in April, so cherish these times. They don't come around every year. We didn't get this last year. So, Alexis, thank you. Look forward to seeing you this weekend, and let's get some wins.
Absolutely, KG. Thanks for asking me to come on. I will never turn down the opportunity to talk hockey with you.
Oh, that makes me so happy. All right, folks, we're back to put a bow on this edition of Wooden Sticks next. All right, we're back, and God, that kid, man, she is something else. We've joked for years. I met her at a charity event. Oh, goodness gracious. She was in college, so we're going back a few years. And I was there with Tom Reed and Ryan Carter, and it was over at the Children's Hospital in St. Paul. And Alexis has a sister that when she was little had some significant health issues, and that was a big part of her journey. And Alexis and her family are very tight-knit, which I think is awesome. But she was one of those kids that was studying at the time at St. Cloud State, wanted to go into broadcasting. I met her, I talked to her dad, and her dad kind of said, hey, would you be comfortable taking her under your wing and maybe having coffee once in a while to kind of point her in the right direction? So we started doing that, and I could see right away this kid had the it factor. Like, she just had it, and I could see this kid was going places. So as her journey continued at St. Cloud State, I hired her to work out at Canterbury and sell tip sheets at the racetrack with me. She crushed it. Of course she did. And then, she didn't really need a lot of help on the broadcast side. She was going places with or without me around, but certainly fun to watch her do some amazing things. And I think she has some great days in front of her too. Who knows where this could go? She's fantastic. And I think you got a little taste of that here on the podcast today. We're all going to have a great time this weekend. Looking forward to flying back here today on Wednesday. Get back for Game 4 Thursday, Game 3 on Thursday, Game 4 on Saturday. Can't wait to see what St. Paul brings to the table. And again, if you have any questions or any topics or any guests that you would like to hear on this show, you can always ping me on X or Twitter, whatever you call it, at Gorgamatic21. At Gorgamatic21 is the place for that. And don't forget to follow Alexis, ALEXISMIRJANA for Alexis Pearson on X or Twitter. You'll get some fantastic content there as well. And we'll see you in St. Paul when we get back for Wild Hockey this weekend. And I'll talk to you next week right here on Wooden Sticks.